So thank you everybody for joining us for this workshop. This is our first event for Respectful Workplace Week 2024. Respectful Workplace Week is an annual event. It's free, open to the public, and it's meant to educate people about building safer and more respectful workplaces. This has historically been a collaborative effort of a number of community organizations, previously centered around the Muriel McLean Ferguson Center at UNB, but more recently centered and centrally organized by my organization, Public Legal Education and Information Service of New Brunswick, or Please NB. My name's Amber Chisholm. I'm Associate Director at Please NB, and we're really excited about the programming that we have available for this year's Respectful Workplace Week. The first of which being this workshop from the GNB Employment Equity Opportunity Program. So Soph Millets and Angela Black are here to deliver this workshop called Accessibility Basics for Facilitators for you all. Before I get started on introducing them, I just want to give you a brief Zoom orientation. So just be aware that because this workshop is relatively interactive, we do have the chat enabled. You'll be able to ask questions of the hosts and panelists, and the other participants and attendees at this workshop will be able to see your questions and see your participation. If you want to ask an anonymous question, you can do so, I believe, through the Q&A function. So that is still an option as well. And you can also send me a message if you have any tech issues or issues hearing or following the presentation. Questions are more than welcome through the Q&A function and the chat. We'll be monitoring those throughout. And feel free to use the audience reaction buttons to send reactions to anything that you're seeing or hearing here today. You can also get in touch with us at Please NB afterwards if you have any feedback or concerns about the programming for Respectful Workplace Week as a whole, or any evaluation or feedback for us. So feel free to do that as well. So with no further ado, I'm going to introduce Soph and Angela, who are here to deliver this workshop with us today. Soph Millets is a program coordinator with the Equal Employment Opportunity Program at the Government of New Brunswick. They have a background in psychology and community-based research. As a queer, neurodivergent, and disabled person, Soph is passionate about accessibility, best practices, and diversity, equity, and inclusion in the workplace. Outside of work, they love to sew and adventure with their two cats, Bunny and Sprinkles. Angela Black is also here, and Angela is a community practitioner and social change maker. After 15 years working as a professional artist and business owner in the arts and culture sector, Angela entered public service to contribute to the growth of her work in areas of inclusion, diversity, equity, and accessibility. Knowing rapid and tangible change could be made at this level of government for the equity-deserving communities she works with and belongs to, Angela jumped at and was given an employment opportunity that has allowed her to create access to meaningful employment on a larger scale. Angela is currently co-lead of the Equal Employment Opportunities Program for the Government of New Brunswick and has been building this historically one-person-led program into a team of 7, alongside longtime colleague Eamon McKenna. The Equal Employment Opportunities Program exists to remove barriers to employment and to provide supports to all levels of government in the areas of inclusion, diversity, equity, and accessibility. So thank you very much both for joining us. I'm going to stop sharing my screen and hand it over to the two of you. I'm going to turn my camera off, but I'll be accessible to anybody who has any issues or questions throughout this presentation. Thanks very much.
Thank you so much for that. Good morning, everybody, and welcome. That was a wonderful introduction. Thank you so much. Just a reminder that you can use the chat. We're all about the chat here at EEO, and we might as well just get started. I just took a list through a peek through the list of folks who are here, and I do recognize some of you as like adjacent colleagues at GMB, but then also from the arts and culture sector. So welcome. It's great to have you all here. All right, so let's go to slide 2. Okay, so this slide introduces the program we're from, which is the Equal Employment Opportunity Program. It's a vital initiative that aims to provide equitable employment opportunities for all in our New Brunswick public Our goal is to offer just enough support to ensure that everyone can access employment opportunities on a fair basis. We're also developing strategic partnerships both within GMB and with outside partners. For people leaders and change makers, we offer an idea network that meets on an almost monthly basis within the public service. So if we have any public servants out there who are people leaders, I would encourage you to become part of the idea network. We also, for our public servants, have employee resource groups. So these offer peer support and resources to those looking for it. We're developing innovative technology projects to improve navigation, accessibility, and to identify barriers in the built environment. We also have idea resources available through the New Brunswick Public Library System, who are also available to the public. If you have a library card, you can access these, and they're right online. Okay, let's see. All right, so our learning objectives today. So first, let's focus on our objectives as facilitators today. So a lead maybe on a virtual call, perhaps it's you're a leader, you may be even if it's just one-on-one. Facilitating can happen in lots of different contexts, so just imagine the different types of situations you have put yourself in or put in daily, whether it's for large groups or maybe with a one-on-one group. Facilitating can happen in many different forms. So we're going to delve into the core concepts of idea. So, inclusion, diversity, equity, and accessibility. These principles lay the groundwork for facilitating sessions that recognize and value each participant's contribution, ensuring access and equality. Then, next, we'll examine the principles of accessibility. Beyond mere adherence to standards, we're discussing how to create an environment that's practical and welcoming for people of all abilities, something every facilitator must consider. As we progress, we'll identify a variety of accessibility needs. It's not solely about removing physical barriers. It's about acknowledging the full range of human diversity and adapting our facilitation to meet these diverse needs. We'll then look at how to weave inclusion and accessibility strategies into our facilitation. These are actionable steps that, as facilitators, we can implement to foster a more inclusive space. Part of our role includes challenging ableism. We'll discuss how to spot and stop ableist attitudes and language in our sessions, and how we can be advocates for positive change. Finally, we'll practice communicating in plain language. As facilitators, it's vital to use clear and simple language to ensure our content is accessible and understood by all participants. Remember, the objectives we set today extend beyond this session. They are commitments we uphold in every session we facilitate to ensure our spaces are inclusive and welcoming for all. Excuse me. So, today we're going to be honing our skills in accessible and inclusive facilitation, guided by the principles of IDEA: inclusion, diversity, equity, and accessibility. These principles aren't just theoretical concepts, they're also practical tools that will directly impact how we facilitate sessions. Our aim is to ensure every training we lead is welcoming and accessible to all participants. Inclusion means crafting sessions where every attendee feels a sense of belonging. We want to make sure all voices can be heard and each perspective is valued. Diversity recognizes the variety of identities, backgrounds, abilities, and views that participants bring. As facilitators, we seek to honor and draw on the diversity to enrich the learning experience. Equity means providing each learner the support they need to fully engage. By removing barriers, we create pathways for every participant to succeed. Lastly, comes accessibility, and today we'll explore how to create accessible spaces that work for all. But first, we'd like to hear about your thoughts on accessibility in facilitation. So, what does accessibility mean to you in the context of learning and facilitation. You can share your insights, be it a definition, an idea, or a personal experience. There's no right or wrong here. You're just going to get warmed up with this. And so just any perspective that will enrich our session. You can put it in the chat. And then my question is, do we see hands? If we're not seeing participants, are we seeing hands, and are people responding only in the chat? Do you know the answer, Soph? Have we?
Yes,
Yeah.
participants have access to respond in the chat only.
Okay. So we're responding in the chat with um, what your thoughts are on accessibility. What does accessibility mean to you? Okay, let's find this chat. Okay, so also offer alternative formats of training, example Braille, or large print. Yes. Different ways to present, including closed captioning for the presenting language, as well as translation into French and or other languages. Live, absolutely. So depending on the size of what it is that you're facilitating, it would be nice to be able to offer absolutely all of the accessibility features, but knowing levels and different amounts of people, it is important to reach out and ask for accessibility needs in advance. Having sessions recorded, transcribed, all these things are great. Absolutely. Oh, I think we have one more. My apologies, I'm used to Teams, but I think I'm getting the Zoom. Okay. Yes, all participants should have opportunity to learn the same content. Everyone, regardless of ability, can access and use spaces and services. Alternative. Ooh, we're getting a lot. There is a difference between in-person and virtual. Absolutely. And facilitation starts with an invitation. It also starts with, if it's in person, how is the person? It's not just about the room being accessible. It's, where are these people parking? Where are these people? What's their first movement from maybe transportation? Okay. The examples, instances quoted in the training should resonate with a variety of participants so they are meaningful. Absolutely. Questioning the default ways in which we work and or plan events, including disabled people in leadership. 100%. I am loving this. Okay, we're already getting a lot of engagement, so this is great. Thank you for all of that. Perfect. That's a great way to start. All of these are valuable contributions, so thank you. Okay. Defining accessibility. So, as facilitators, when we discuss accessibility, we usually think of adapting materials and spaces for participants with disabilities. But true accessibility is much broader. It's about designing our sessions and interactions to be inclusive and supportive for everyone, taking into account all kinds of abilities. So, this includes being mindful of physical, cognitive, sensory, emotional, and cultural factors, as well as other barriers that might limit someone's ability to engage fully in the learning process. So, our job is to actively identify and remove these barriers, making participation possible and meaningful for all attendees. I will hand it over to my colleague, Soph.
Great. Thank you, Angela. So, in our facilitation, we often see accessibility as accommodations for individuals with disabilities. But, like Angela mentioned, accessibility practices reach far beyond that. Let's take the example of the curb cut. This was originally designed for wheelchair users, but now we see how it aids parents with strollers, delivery workers, and so many others. Consider also a tool like closed captioning. It's not just for those who are hard of hearing. Have you ever found captions useful in a noisy cafe or when the audio might be unclear? It's a tool that enhances understanding for many of us. And these are just a few examples of how accessibility features can have universal benefits, a concept that we as facilitators should weave into every aspect of our work. Now I'd like you to think about the tools and adjustments you've encountered in your daily life that make things more accessible. How might these be translated into practices that enhance our facilitation? Let's type in the chat and compile a list of everyday accessibility enhancers. So, what are some tools and adjustments that you've encountered in your daily life that make things more accessible? Captions. Sometimes they are funny though. Yes, definitely as software improves, they get better, but they have a really hard time with things like acronyms and other very specific technical language. The auto button outside buildings helps when I'm with my kids. Absolutely. Automatic doors opening, escalators, working from home, screen color adjustments, absolutely, adjusting the color, adjusting the contrast, having the options between light and dark mode on your computer or on applications, absolutely. Masks, especially when events and venues provide these free for all attendees. Yes, I love that, Rebecca. That's a good one. Yeah, love the engagement. Some others that I can think of is texting. It's something that we probably do every day, not just for quick communication, but also as an alternative when speaking isn't an option. Voiceovers on phones and laptops, absolutely. Aids to open jars, FaceTime and video calls. Oh yeah, this is awesome. So many things that we use every day that can enhance accessibility. Google, Alexa, yes, those voice activated assistants can help with organization, might be good to manage lists. I use them for reminders or timers. They can help with reminders. So for memory, prepared meals, meal kits, absolutely. Yeah, that's awesome. Thanks everyone for your participation. Um, and all these things are so important to consider as facilitators. Our role is to identify universally designed features, like all the things that you've mentioned, and consider how we can apply similar principles to create inclusive learning experiences. As facilitators focused on making a difference, we need to understand that our work also extends beyond the trainings we facilitate. It's deeply connected to universal human rights. According to the United Nations, the right to work is fundamental, and ensuring accessibility is a crucial part of this right. Here in New Brunswick, we're looking at a reality where 35.3% of our population is living with disabilities. This is quite a bit above the national average of 27%, and the numbers have been rising sharply by 8.6% from 2017 to 2022, which is a span of 5 years. And these numbers are more than just statistics. They represent real people in our province who rely on us to create equal opportunities for full participation in the workforce and in community life. And this backdrop sets the stage for why our training is so important. It's really about equipping ourselves with the knowledge and tools to actively eliminate obstacles that prevent full participation. And by ensuring our sessions are accessible, we are, oh, sorry, I just had something pop up from Teams. I think it's updating in the background of all of this, but sorry. where was I? So yes, it's about equipping ourselves with knowledge and tools to actively eliminate obstacles that prevent full participation. And by ensuring our sessions are accessible, we're upholding these rights and setting an example for everyone. Okay, so accessibility is about more than just taking off requirements. Again, it's about deep and thoughtful approaches to everyone's needs. When you're considering a session, for example, consider all angles of mobility. Ask yourself, have you planned for attendees who might need extra help getting around? Think about ensuring if there's space to maneuver if you're in person. Visual and auditory accessibility shouldn't be an afterthought. Are you prepared with options like enlarged text or screen reader compatibility? And if you're not sure about these things, we will talk a little bit more about them. If there are participants who might be deaf or hard of hearing, think about how you might integrate sign language interpretation or provide captioning. Cognitive diversity is also crucial. How will you structure your sessions to ensure clear communication for all learning styles? And let's not overlook mental health. As you design your training, consider creating spaces that promote mental well-being. Are you creating a safer space where participants feel they can share and engage without judgment? If you're doing check-ins, are they done in an accessible manner? When you make a space better for one person, it should not become less accessible for another. Really strive to find solutions that harmonize, not clash. Again, thinking about how you might design your sessions to be inclusive and accommodating to a range of needs. And we're going to practice this in our next activity. We'll collaborate to come up with some strategies that celebrate and support the diversity of needs within any group. All right, so sort of how this next section works is we're going to go through these scenarios one by one together. And in each of these scenarios, there's two individuals and they have conflicting accessibility needs, or what seems to be conflicting accessibility needs. Our job is to come up with some creative solutions or active offers that we might be able to provide these people, whether these people are in our office space, in our trainings or our workshops, for example, whether they're in our virtual space. We'll come up with some ideas for each of these scenarios. And there's no wrong or right answer. Feel free to suggest anything that comes to mind. I often learn of new solutions and new interesting and creative ways to meet the needs of both people and situations every single time we deliver this training. So let's start with scenario 1. In this situation, we have Alex and Sam. Alex has a hearing impairment and benefits from a quiet environment to use hearing aids effectively. Sam has ADHD and requires background noise or music to maintain concentration. What sorts of solutions or active offers might you offer to Alex or Sam or both of them in this situation? Tina says allow Sam to use earbuds or headphones to listen to music while working.
Also, so just before we get too far
Oh,
down into the chat, we have had somebody, and I'm not exactly quite sure what slide. I know it's happened since we did our last exercise, just asking about, it was Sandra asking, can you speak to the kinds of disabilities? So I'm not sure, Sandra, if you want to clarify what that was about. I would like to be able to answer your question. We can hold off if you want more clarity on that, but I'm just noticing that we didn't see it come up in the chat. So maybe what we can do is oh, oh, okay,
oh,
Sandra's just responded. Oh, if 30% of the workforce in New Brunswick is living with a disability, what kinds are they so we can better prepare? Yes, that's a great question. Um, Here is our approach at EEO. So we don't work in accommodations. This is a legal term. We have a unit called Disability Management Unit within government that manages accommodations. So our approach would be more about creating space and trainings that will empower and coach managers to be able to provide what we call active offers and accessibility best practices. We're really trying to move away from requiring what is and can be very arduous medical documentation, and more so just like infuse our workforce with these best practices. So for example, we do also avoid asking people about their disabilities, for example, and getting into those. But if you're working in accessibility spaces, and most definitely in accommodation spaces, you may want to have a level of understanding. I do know that in the accommodation space, they very much look to medical professionals to provide that for them, like an occupational therapist, for example. So I would say that if you're looking for like accessibility basics, I would think that a basic understanding of physical access needs, and then probably cognitive, for those that have intellectual and developmental disabilities. You could also spend some time looking into organizational. Um, Tools that are also built in to Teams, for example. So, do you have anything else to add to that where somebody could start?
I think that's a really a solid start that will give you a
Okay.
little bit of introduction. I will say a lot of things that we talk about today can also be applied to anyone. Um, it doesn't matter what category or what their disability might be. A lot of these things can be beneficial for a variety of different people. And getting to know the individual's access needs and what they need to be successful in training or in facilitation is most important.
And just to clarify too, Sandra, you say, I didn't realize this wasn't including accessibility for medically documented needs. Um, Much of our accessibility best practices will support those with medically documented needs. I just had to make it very clear that our program doesn't work specifically with accommodations. Much of what we would recommend would be more universal that could support all, even let's say a typical person. So it would benefit, but we tend, and we're trying to move away from that medical model of accessibility to more of a social model of accessibility, where the onus is put more on the organization or the manager rather than the person. I hope that makes sense. Okay, I think we probably can get back at it. You're welcome. Absolutely.
Awesome. Okay, I'll just scroll back up because there were a couple. I know Tina started us off with some earbuds and headphones. Joanne says the same thing. Noise canceling headphones for Alex, absolutely. Closed offices is another great option. Having separate environments. Again, noise canceling headphones, earbuds, absolutely. For Alex in meetings, they may benefit from being around rather being seating being round rather than rectangular ones. Could also adjust volume on hearing aids. Absolutely. Ensuring noise canceling headphones are allowed to be expensed and covered by workplace. Absolutely. Yeah. These are some awesome solutions. These are great. These are all very similar to what we had. Noise canceling headphones to minimize background noise for Alex may be helpful, while also allowing personal headphones for Sam. Again, someone mentioned designating different workspaces, whether that's using soundproof partitions, or maybe there's a quiet zone or a more dynamic zone where people can sit. Another one that I didn't see mentioned yet, but is also working remotely or working virtually. That way, these people, if they're working remote, they may be able to control their environment at home or in their own space to suit their needs, how they can be most successful. Awesome. Thank you. Okay, so for our second scenario here, we have Jordan and Taylor. So Jordan requires bright, consistent lighting to navigate and read materials, whereas Taylor is sensitive to bright lighting due to sensory processing differences. In this situation, what kind of solutions might you be able to offer Jordan and Taylor?
We're very good with the awkward silence too. Oh, here we go.
Um, I just want to read Rebecca's comment first as well. Rebecca recommends reading work by disability justice activists, and lists a couple there as well. Disability justice is more about making the world accessible systemically rather than requiring individuals to disclose their disabilities and do the work of requesting adaptations. Absolutely. That's awesome. Thank you for that comment, Rebecca. As for some solutions, we've got lamp lighting, absolutely. Removing the overhead lighting, separate workspaces, a bright lamp for Jordan and low lighting for Taylor, possible dimming for one area, having adjustable lighting. Ooh, a lumen test and install a light tent above Taylor's desk or remove a bulb. And for Jordan, maybe have a seat near a window for some natural light. Absolutely. Brightness adjusted screens, separate workspaces, work from home, put up a separate light or lamp for Jordan. Yeah, all of these are really awesome. I don't see any more coming in, so I'll offer some of the solutions that we have. Rebecca got a comment in here. That was one that I had. Absolutely. Migraine glasses or blue light glasses can also be helpful for light sensitivity. Yeah. Things like sunglasses or even dimming shades might be helpful to someone in this situation if they have sensitivity to lighting. We listed very similar responses to everyone in the chat as well. Adjustable lighting, whether that's adjustable overhead lighting that might be able to be dimmed, or even personal lighting solutions like maybe a desk lamp, and then light dimming filters or shades. Wonderful. All right. Okay, so scenario 3, we have Emma and Liam. So in this situation, Emma has social anxiety and feels more comfortable participating in virtual meetings with her video turned off. Liam is deaf and relies on lip reading and visual cues, which requires others to have their video turned on. What sorts of solutions might we be able to offer Emma and or Liam in this situation? Chat meeting, closed captioning, chat options for when Emma needs to communicate. Ask Emma to turn on the camera when speaking. Participate through the chat. Oh yeah, we love the chat here. I love the chat function. It is nice to see when chat works and nobody on camera. Oh yeah. Yeah, participation through chat is just as valuable and as and contributes just as much as other ways of participating in a virtual meeting. For our solutions, we had sort of mentioning what Sandra touched on a little bit, which is encouraging sort of a flexible video policy where participants can choose to have their video on or off. And that way Emma has the option to choose and she can turn it on when she is speaking if she wants to, and keep it off otherwise. Could also provide alternate methods for Emma to participate, like lots of folks mentioned the chat, and live captions. Live captions is also another option in this situation. Great. And this is our last little accessibility scenario here, where we have Diane and Max. So Diane is experiencing hot flashes and needs a cooler work environment to manage sudden increases in body temperature, whereas Max is more sensitive to temperature fluctuations and needs a stable and warmer environment to avoid sensory discomfort. What might be a good solution or some active offers that you could provide Diane and Max in this situation? Provide Diane a fan or a small space cooler. Absolutely. Heating pads and blankets are my best friends at work. Love that. I have a blanket desk or a desk blanket, I guess, in my cubicle at the office because it gets cold in there. Provide a blanket for Max. Allow Diane to have a fan or a neck fan. Sit Diane and Max in separate areas. Maybe closer to an AC vent, absolutely, where there's more direct cooling, where Max can sit maybe next to a window with direct sunlight. Absolutely, yeah, those are some good options. I haven't heard that one before. I like that option. Sit Max near a sunny window. I am Max, so I can resonate. Yes, yes. I love that. Yeah, those are some awesome solutions, and some new ones that I haven't heard before as well. We said similar things like personal climate control devices, like a desk fan. I like the idea of a neck fan. That's really great when it gets like super hot outside. There's also options like a cooling pad for Diane, or maybe a space heater or heated clothing for Max. And Tina is a Diane. Oh, love it. Hence the neck fan. Bought one on Amazon. Cool. Yeah. Lots of different personal heating solutions or cooling solutions that might be able to help Diane and Max in these situations. Okay, and I will pass things back to you, Angela, to talk about inclusive communication.
Awesome. Also, I'm wondering about a break before we get too far down. When would we probably in about 20 minutes? So let's just keep our eye on the time so everybody gets a little breather. Okay. So language is more than a means of communication. It's a reflection of our respect for the individuality and diversity present in our community. We're about to dig into inclusive communication, which is vital for honoring the diversity in our spaces. We'll start with the role of personal pronouns and professional respect. Next up, we'll get into gender neutral language. We'll also tackle cultural sensitivity and avoiding ableist language. Key for creating an accessible, inviting workplace. Word choices are powerful. They shape a workplace where everyone feels acknowledged. Okay, so We're starting with the role of personal pronouns and professional respect. They're vital for recognizing identities without making judgments based on names and appearances. Including pronouns in our introductions and on platforms like Teams is a straightforward step towards building a culture of respect. As facilitators, sharing our own pronouns models respectful behavior and sets clear expectations around identity and assumptions in the workplace. Like today, I did not necessarily introduce myself, so I didn't give my pronouns. They are she, her. And also, it's important to know that we can't always get it right. And being correcting in real time is something I've learned to do. And so, there you all go. Those are my pronouns. Putting pronouns in email signatures and introductions can help to signal to all employees, especially transgender and non binary individuals, that their identities are seen and respected here. Gently correcting pronoun misuse educates on the importance of using someone's correct pronouns as a way to affirm who they are. And we don't have it in this presentation, but we do have a presentation on apologies or sorries. And this can come into play in that space. And typically, what we do now, and I learn in this exact scenario that at first I was told, you know, to ask what pronouns do you prefer, but now we no longer say prefer. It's what pronouns do you use. So the best thing to do if you've made a mistake is to correct and keep moving on, and not draw too much attention to the situation. Just, oh, okay, stand corrected, correct yourself, and move along. So our goal is to make assumptions less common and acceptance more widespread through ongoing education. Establishing pronoun use as a common practice creates a culture where people feel safe bringing their whole authentic selves to work. As guides for these conversations, we have an opportunity to champion these changes. Okay. So, as facilitators, we champion gender neutral language to reflect respect for all identities. This begins with our written and spoken communication. Instead of dear, sir, or madame, use dear team or hello everyone in emails and correspondence, setting a standard for inclusivity. In our sessions, it's a small shift that can matter a lot. Greet participants with welcome everyone or good morning folks to ensure all participants feel acknowledged right from the start. We also need to be mindful of the language around roles and titles, suggest workforce over manpower, ombudsperson instead of ombudsman to avoid gendered language. It's our responsibility to model and reinforce these inclusive practices in every training, helping all attendees feel seen and respected. So on the slide, there are a few examples, but I'm sure you can think of more. Let's open up the floor in the chat and let's give some examples of terms you have noticed that could be more inclusive. Share your thoughts and discuss. Okay, let's see here. Just give people a moment. Yeah, manpower. Exactly. We use friend in a union setting instead of sisters and brothers. 100%. That's one I have not heard. You guys, yes, I am replacing with folks. Guys is definitely one of those ones that has been challenging for me to remove. I feel like I've almost fully integrated folks. I like y'all. I like y'all too. People still say girls. Yes, they do. Yeah. Yeah. I tend to have a more, I'm going to say, strict filter in settings where I do not know folks. But I have started really making those changes even in smaller settings, more so just as a leader. Um, Spouse or partner instead of husband or wife, 100%. Yes. Siblings. Awesome. Okay. Parent, 100%. I know that this is not so much gendered, but because we're here in this space of learning, I've worked in arts and culture for many, many years as an educator, still own the business, but I train my instructors to, when approaching a child, instead of speaking to mom or dad, we're speaking to guardian. We do work in a social impact space where a lot of the children coming here may be in a group home and may not necessarily have mom and dad as a guardian. So it's just another way of looking at, the assumptions that we make, that we don't necessarily. So my instructors are very versed in that, that we speak to guardian rather than mom, dad, or even parent. Okay, I love this. I think we're good. Let's move on. Okay, so to enhance cultural awareness in our training sessions, it's essential to recognize that each participant brings a unique blend of experiences and perspectives. These diverse backgrounds enrich our collective culture and improve how we communicate and interact within the workplace. Cultural and Culture encompasses more than just geographic origins or physical appearances. It includes the shared experiences and perspectives within diverse groups. So, this broad definition of culture acknowledges that groups such as veterans, autistic individuals, and other distinct communities have their own cultures, each with its own dynamic. Excuse me. As facilitators, appreciating these nuances in our interactions is crucial. Adopting a stance of radical acceptance is key to truly connecting with training participants. This means meeting everyone where they are without excuse me, without preconceptions and being open to learning how they prefer to engage. It involves actively adapting our communication approach to be as inclusive as possible. For example, cultural competence with racialized individuals might involve acknowledging and addressing biases, actively listening, and creating space for voices that have historically been marginalized. The goal is to foster an environment where everyone feels seen, heard, and valued. When working with neurodivergent colleagues, understanding their unique ways of processing information, expressing thoughts is vital. This could mean providing clear instructions, being patient with different communication methods, or creating a work environment that minimizes sensory overload. In practice, these principles translate into ensuring our training spaces are welcoming and accommodating to all, using inclusive language and recognizing the cultural dimensions of professionalism. This approach not only shows a respect for the unique insights and communication styles of all participants, but also builds a team culture where every contribution is valued. As facilitators, our commitment to these practices strengthens our training sessions and fosters a community within our workplace. By embodying these values, we're not just teaching skills, we're also nurturing an inclusive culture that reflects our brand at GMB as one team, one GMB. All right, handing it over.
Okay, I think we can probably get through this slide before we go for a little break. So we're moving on now to rethinking language, specifically ableism. So talked a little bit about non-gendered inclusive language. Now we're talking about ableist language. Ableism is a form of discrimination that favors people without disabilities and marginalizes those with disabilities. And this discrimination affects individuals with a wide range of disabilities, including physical, sensory, intellectual, and mental health. Ableism isn't just about blatant discrimination, but it might be things like the misuse of the term like crutch. In fact, using crutch as a metaphor for weakness or over-reliance actually overlooks the fact that crutches can be empowering tools. They provide mobility and independence for many individuals, and misusing this term fails to acknowledge their positive enabling role. Ableism can also manifest in less obvious ways, including complex language or using a bunch of professional jargon that might be difficult for some people to understand. It could also include failing to make activities accessible and inclusive for everyone. For those leading training sessions, it's important to ensure that we're not unintentionally promoting ableism. And this involves more than just avoiding certain phrases. Where are we at? Oh, okay. We need to ensure that our language is clear and accessible, and our activities are designed to be adaptable for everyone. Phrases like using it as a crutch or turning a blind eye can perpetrate negative stereotypes and trivialize the experiences of individuals with disabilities. It's our responsibility to be mindful of our language and actions and strive to create respectful and inclusive spaces for all. Okay, so we'd like to know, are there some phrases that you have heard or used that upon reflection might unintentionally contribute to ableism? There's a couple on the slide here, for example, describing unpredictable behavior as bipolar, or labeling something as insane or crazy to denote irrationality, accusing meticulousness of being OCD, saying someone is blind to the problem or deaf to all reason to indicate ignorance. So I'd love to hear some phrases or some terms that maybe you have heard or might have seen or used that might unintentionally contribute to ableism. Falling on deaf ears, absolutely. Are you deaf? I'm talking to you while yelling at someone. Yep. You're smart for a girl or you look good for your age. Yeah, absolutely. Those are some microaggressions. Oh, yeah. Tina says special in quotations. Yep. Using blind, as in blind resume, as an attempt to level the field. Joking about Alzheimer's or dementia when someone forgets something. Yeah, that's a good one. You're such an
Yeah.
idiot, or the R word. Absolutely.
Yeah.
One that I've been working hard to change is labeling something as crazy or insane. I've been trying to switch my wording to something like wild or unpredictable or unexpected.
They do hurt when they're put all together. Oh, yeah, it's a lot. Considering disabled a bad word or something connoting weakness. Yeah.
Okay, I think there's some, we're slowing down in the chat a little bit.
Oh, I
Oh,
think we got one more.
sometimes people will mistake someone who's hard of hearing with not actually being able to comprehend. They're not the same thing. Absolutely.
Mm,
Yeah. Assuming someone's level of understanding. Um,
yeah, cognitive, we speak to that. I have had extensive um, experience with adults with intellectual and developmental disabilities in a wide range of them. And I would say it was probably only 10 years ago that I noticed, a change in my voice when speaking. And so no longer used infantilizing tones. And really, when I became a mom and I, had this beautiful little child, there was only a short window of time when I spoke to Georgia like a baby. And to this day, like even at 3, her vocabulary was incredible because I just used words with her and I just explained to her, um, we underestimate the power of just speaking to people the way we would speak to anybody, whether they're a child, whether they're a person with intellectual or developmental disability. It makes a big difference. And working with adults with intellectual and developmental disabilities, regardless of their cognitive ability and the spectrum, they know when a person is speaking to them like they're a child. Yeah, I just thought I would add that.
Yeah, that's a good note. Absolutely. Oh, people asking, can you do blank to disabled people instead of allowing them to make their own decisions? Yeah, making assumptions about someone's abilities.
Mm, mhm.
Even children don't care to be spoken like they're a child. Yes.
Yeah, you can gain a lot of respect just talking to humans like humans.
Hmm.
Yes. I love this. Yeah. We know when we're being talked to like we're less than or children or not understood. Okay.
Awesome. Okay, we're at 2 o'clock. So do we want to do a short break? Um, how long should we do?
Let's say 10 minutes. I think, sometimes I want to say 5, and I'm like, that's just simply not enough time if someone actually needs to go to the washroom. So let's take 10 minutes.
Okay, sounds good. So we'll take 10 minutes and come back at 2:10 and pick up where we left off. We've still got a couple more activities to go through. So we'll see you in 10.
Thanks. I'll put that in the chat as well.
Awesome. Thanks, Amber.
Thank you.
Right, it is 2:10. I'm wondering if folks can give me a thumbs up or reaction of some sort if you are back.
It's looking like people are able to put up their hands. Yeah, looks like people are coming back.
Okay, perfect.
Oh, we got a thumbs up too.
Awesome. Great.
Okay.
Okay, so we left off on talking about ableism, but now we're going to talk about internalized ableism. And this is when we take in and believe society's negative ideas about disability and apply them to ourselves. And this isn't just something that affects people with disabilities, but it's something that affects many of us and that we all deal with when we try to live up to what society thinks is normal, in quotations, or what we think is capable, in quotations. Our role as facilitators, we need to be aware that this can show up in our training sessions. For example, someone might not ask for the help they need because they're worried about how it looks, or they might skip an activity because it's not set up for their needs. Even avoiding talking about mental health because they don't want to seem weak is internalized ableism. You might not have known the term internalized ableism, but chances are you have felt it. Have you ever worked through a headache instead of taking a break? Or felt bad for needing to take a moment away from work to get back on track? That's internalized ableism, where we ignore our own needs because of what we think society expects from us.
I find I just got to interrupt you here. So if I come from like, okay, this is a blanket statement, but like that traditional background, like where you suck it up and you just get back up on that horse and ride. And I think that there is a middle area where, depending on what it is that you thought in your head when you heard these statements, it probably is very telling of where you are on that line. And a person can be like, "Oh man, like people people these days are like, what are these children going to grow up to be?" And I think that we know using statistics that the people more often than not they are not trying to take advantage. So I just wanted to throw that out there that there is research showing, particularly in the disability community, when accessibility needs are met, a person, people want to work. People want to be out there and contributing to society using their gifts and their abilities. And so if part of you is saying in your head, oh, this person is just, taking advantage, or oh my goodness, people these days, just take a minute and think, okay, this is part of the shift that we need to make. And I say, as a people leader, I have nothing to lose by believing a person and what they say their needs are. And it doesn't make a difference to me if a person changes their mind from one day to the next. Based on what their needs are today, they may be different tomorrow. I just appreciate that they um, can tell me, because there are some folks that I've worked with that do not have the ability to tell me what it is that they need. And I have adapted to that scenario as well. So that's all I have to say about that. Sorry for interrupting, Self.
All good, thank you. Um, okay, so we have another activity here, this time touching on internalized ableism. And so I'd like every one of you to take a moment and reflect on your own experiences. Maybe think about a time when you yourself have pushed yourself to continue working despite discomfort, or when you might felt hesitant to use workplace resources or maybe take a day off. Jot down your thoughts on a piece of paper or in a digital document. This is just for you, so you can be as honest as you want. And I would like to invite anyone who feels comfortable to share their reflections in the chat. This isn't about judgment, but more about understanding how common these experiences are and how they're influenced by the broader societal views we've all been exposed to. If you're looking for some inspiration, there's a couple of expressions on the slide as a starting point. Some of the ones that I have most definitely thought and told myself is the narrative that I shouldn't need so much rest. I'm being lazy. Or I need to stop being so sensitive to my symptoms or to my situation. I need to push through and ignore my limitations. I feel guilty for not being able to keep up with everyone else. All these thoughts are internalized ableism showing up. If I'm too sick to work, I'm too sick to go out. I feel guilty if I would need to take a mental health day. Like how I'm feeling should be more visible. Yeah, absolutely. I think that's one that a lot of people struggle with. Um, it's like, oh, nothing looks wrong, or you don't look disabled, or you don't look sick. Is something that I've heard, and so um, feeling guilty for needing to take a mental health day or a day because of invisible illness, or because you need it, regardless, you just need that day. Yeah, I need to hide or not let people know I'm experiencing difficulties at work due to my disability. Yeah, absolutely. Needing to mask or to hide certain parts of ourselves because we don't want other people to think that we're weak or that we can't do our job or etc. etc. Find it very hard to take my lunch break and move away from my desk. Typically, I would prefer a working lunch. That is interesting. Yeah, internalized ableism is preventing me from answering. Yes, yes, Joanne, yes, that is it. That's the thing. It's hard, especially if this might be one of the first times you've started thinking about this. It can kind of be a lot. It can be a pretty big realization. Um, and I love that's so real. I love that, Joanne. Thank you for sharing. I need to work through my illness instead of taking a sick day. If I do not, the work will not get done. Needing to work through or push through illness. And typed in the chat, I've started only unmasking the last 5 years or so, and as a leader, it has built so much trust and honesty. Yeah. A lot of what I've internalized has been as a direct result of my supervisor's approach or viewpoint on their own health needs. I've worked through illnesses because that feels like the expectation they've set. Yeah, that's a really good point. Again, why challenging internalized ableism in ourselves is so important. It contributes to ableism in our entire society, just like how your direct supervisors internalized ableism might be affecting you. Internalized ableism being linked to perfectionism, absolutely, yep. or feeling like you need to work harder to prove yourself because you have a disability, for example. Always need to show that I've got it together. It's hard to be vulnerable. Yes, it is. Has a lot to do with workplace culture. If I request accommodations, I'll be seen as disruptive, demanding, or too much. And Andrew, I manage a team of multiply disabled employees in both private and public sector, and they're high-performing individuals if given the proper accessibility supports. Yeah. These are all some really good examples, and also some heavy ones. That this stuff can be pretty heavy to sit with. And it starts with us today, thinking about them, questioning where they came from, and working to change that narrative. Needing someone else to tell me it's okay if I take a sick day. I don't just believe myself. It's okay to take a sick day. Yes, it's okay. I bet everyone in the room would tell you it's okay to take a sick day. I'm telling you it's okay. Anne said it's okay. Yeah, that self-doubt again coming in, the internalized aspect of this. We demand you take a sick day in a kind, respectful, caring, loving way. Take your days off when you need it. Yeah, it's hard. It's hard. And it's a process, and it's not something that you can change overnight. And if you've been thinking a certain way, really internalizing these thoughts and the views that society puts on us for several years, maybe decades, it can be hard to change them. And so one step at a time. Awesome. Thank you everyone for your contribution. That was really great. I feel like there's a lot of really great points in here.
Oh, we have a really good one here. The guilt of not being able to balance all roles, work, family, kids, etc., etc. Oh,
Hmm.
oh yes. Is it Swati? I literally get it. I could go for days on this. It's difficult to fight through those quiet work culture attitudes that have been in place for decades. The generational differences sometimes are at play. Yes, you certainly need to find your supports within your organization, and some organizations are not as vast as ours, the GMB, which is the largest employer in New Brunswick. Um, However, you can reach out for tips anytime. I get it. There's pockets of this throughout the organization, and it is about a cultural shift. Attitudinal barriers are real, and yes, generational differences. Yeah, I I'm with you, Justine. 100%. Okay. Okay. Let's continue our conversation by looking at how using plain language can make our training sessions more inclusive. Plain language is all about clear and simple communication. It's not just cutting out jargon or technical terms. It's about making sure that what we say is easy for everyone in our sessions to understand. This means using active voice, choosing common words, and simplifying complex ideas. And we'll go through an exercise shortly that'll help you get familiar with what that means. So, by embracing plain language principles, we peel away unnecessary complexities to reveal the essence of what we aim to convey, making information more accessible. Embracing plain language is one way we can tackle ableism head on. It's about making sure we're not excluding anyone or making them feel left out because our language is too complex. Using clear language shows we're considering everyone's ability to understand and participate. So, Get ready to dive in. Next up, we've got another activity. We'll be working on turning some overly complicated phrases into plain language. This one is the one where I'm like, no, don't make me. Words and editing has been a lifelong thing for me. I have always needed support with editing, and ideas for me come out in like what I call my fireworks brain. So I can, yeah, anyway, not to scare you, but this exercise does kind of scare me. So if you want to sit this one out, it's fine. But then I know there's probably likely some editors in the mix. So um, let's get going here. As facilitators, our goal is to create an environment where everyone feels they can contribute and be heard. So let's go on to our activity. Okay, so this is the activity we mentioned earlier that will allow you to get some hands-on practice with rewriting complex phrases into plain language phrases. Sometimes we do breakout rooms, but I don't think we need to do that here, particularly entirely cameras off. We will do this in the chat. So what I would like you to do, you do not have to do all of them. You can choose one of them. You may even just read them and think about the words and look at the words and try to consider something that might be a little bit clearer. And just as a guideline, our plain language standard is out. Accessibility Standards Canada has put out the plain language standards. And it is plain language usually sits somewhere around a grade A level. So choose one of these three, and I'm going to give everybody, I'm going to say, I'm going with an odd number here, 6 minutes till 3:32. And you can put your rewrite in the chat. And then we're just going to go down through these examples. And really, as an exercise, if you're like, oh, don't have the energy to do this, maybe just kind of scan the words and look at them and really try to think if I were speaking to grade 8 or less, how could I make this less complex? So I'll just let everybody work away until 2:32 and we'll come back. Oh yeah, we've got some editors for sure. We've got already some rewrites. A Yeah, it's difficult to write. Oh yeah. And government documents as well as corporate policies aren't the most easy to understand. No. How about laws, where all of us need to understand laws? Um, wouldn't it be nice if kids could read the the laws and understand them? Yeah, we need to identify. Okay, a couple more minutes. You're welcome, Sandra. Thanks so much for your engagement. We'll see you later. And don't apologize. It's okay. Is there anybody out there using AI? Has anybody pumped this into ChatGPT? This is an accessibility feature that supports taking complex language and putting it into plain language, and it's not cheating. Okay. Okay, I think we're just about there. Thank you all for adding to the chat. So let's start with the first one. Where are we? Okay, so number one was, in order to optimize stakeholder engagement strategies, we must develop a comprehensive understanding of the diverse needs and perspectives of our constituents and tailor our communication methods accordingly. So let's choose one from the chat because we have so many. Might as well start at the bottom here. To engage stakeholders better, we need to understand their needs and adjust our communication. Even shortened it. That's great. Love it. Okay, I'm just going to read one example from each so we can move on to the next. Okay, as we navigate the economic challenges posed by the pandemic, it is crucial that we leverage fiscal sustainability frameworks to ensure the long-term financial health and resilience of our province. Okay, so number two. Did we have an example of number two?
I think
In the chat?
Joanne's is number two.
To improve.
As we deal with the financial difficulties caused by the pandemic, it's important to use smart budgeting practices to keep our province financially stable and strong in the long run.
Perfect. Love it. Okay, let's move on. Okay. To ensure our policies remain effective and relevant, we need to implement comprehensive policy review protocols and include regular assessments, stakeholder feedback, and data driven adjustments. Okay. Let's go with Isabel's. We need to review our policies to ensure they remain effective and relevant, and that includes evaluations, feedback, and adjustments based on data. Nice. Okay. All right. So, embracing, oh, and thank you for that. That felt like we were in school a little bit, and that's okay. We got through it. Okay, embracing inclusive language is a key part of our journey as facilitators. Even small changes in how we communicate can significantly improve accessibility and help break down barriers. This creates a more welcoming space for everyone involved in our sessions. As we wrap up today's session, let's remember the principles of IDEA: inclusion, diversity, equity, and accessibility. These aren't just abstract ideas, they're practical tools we should weave into every aspect of our facilitation work. They require our continuous effort and dedication, and it's up to us as facilitators to nurture an environment that everyone can access and feel part of. This commitment doesn't end when this session does. It's an ongoing process that we all share in. I encourage you to consult the resource list provided at the end. This list includes valuable tools from the New Brunswick Public Libraries and information on the EO program and our employee resource groups, if you're a public servant, which can support you in your efforts to advance inclusivity. You'll receive this list after the session as well. I urge you to keep these conversations going and to support each other as we work towards building a workplace that celebrates the diversity and strengths of our community. Thank you for your engagement and dedication to our shared goal of advancing inclusivity. So the next would be our resource list. I'm not sure if it's clickable in Zoom. It is when we present on Teams. Is it clickable on the screen?
I
Can
don't think
sh-
it is.
No, we'll send it off so that you have it in email, and it'll be clickable there. We have it set up on Teams so that the, participants can click. We may need to get better with Zoom the more we use it. So my apologies for that. You will get it afterwards. And last but not least, our EO related links. Much would be because we are about our, as an employer, a lot of our resources are to support our internal employees. However, we are also a program dedicated to bringing in our equity groups. So if you are a member of an equity group and you were thinking you may like to work for the public service, you can sign up for our program and register once you get that with the Equal Employment Opportunities Program. And we can support you one-on-one coming in. Is there anything you would like to add, Soph, before we leave these fine folks?
I don't think so. That was all the content we had to share. But if anyone has any questions, you can ask them in the chat, or there's also the Q&A option as well, where you can ask questions anonymously. We're happy to take any questions as well.
You are
Give
so
folks a few
welcome,
minutes
everybody.
to ask their
Yeah.
questions. Thank you both so much for this presentation. I
No,
think it was a really valuable conversation. We're so glad that you agreed to deliver this for us as part of Respectful Workplace Week. So if folks have any questions, feel free to drop them in the chat. We'll give a few minutes because you were scheduled to be here for a little while and we've got time. And in the meantime, also feel free to check out the schedule for the remaining Respectful Workplace Week sessions. We'll be doing 2 forum days tomorrow, so that'll be like 1-hour slots of presentations by different community groups, discussion panels on the topic of Respectful Workplace Week. It's a pretty broad topic, so there's quite a broad range of presenters, but I'll drop a link to the schedule in the chat and also to the registration page.